I return every year, every Christmas. Instrumental here. I come home every year, every Christmas. Okay, so honestly, like, also one of my favorite holiday songs of all time, Every Year, Every Christmas by Luther Vandross, always hits home for me, always hits the soul. I just feel like it is such a freaking sad song. Oh my gosh, it's so sad. It's depressing in a lot of different ways, but I love it. And I don't know what that says about me as a person. I don't know what that says. Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrealm. Welcome back to another Vlogmas video. And we are trucking along here. Keep on trucking, baby. Do-do-do. If you know that song, you get cool points for telling me who the artist is in the comments. Anyway, we are on day 16 of Vlogmas. That means that it is officially, hold on, let me do the math in my head. 9 days. 9 days until Christmas, and I am excited. I still haven't done any Christmas shopping, so not sure what I'm really excited for. Although my family and I agreed this year that we would just do stocking stuffers and not this big gift exchange, which is good. You know, we're not really big on the gift things. It's just about spending time with each other. So we don't ever look for anything for the holidays, and I think that's just kind of our thing that we've always done, which is great. But anyway, yes, moving on. As you can see from the title of this video, I wanted to use a song Every Year, Every Christmas by Luther Vandross because it talks about some repetitive behavior, something that he does every year, every Christmas. So I was thinking, what is something that's repetitive? I already did books that I can reread, but what's something else I could talk about? And something that comes up every year is how Booktube talks about the same things over and over and over and over again. And having been in the Booktube community for quite some time, I can attest to the fact that yes, these conversations do come up over and over and over again. And you may be wondering in your head, well, what conversations are repeated? Conversations like consumerism. These are like buzzwords. Consumerism. Do booktubers really read their books? You know, piracy. Like, it's the same conversations that really do come up every single year. Like, we hit these topics at least once a year. It's without fail that we hit these topics once a year, and the conversations keep coming up. So what I wanted to do today was talk a little bit about the cyclical nature of Booktube's conversations and why we can't seem to move past these conversations, and maybe what we can do to move past these conversations. So what ends up happening usually is that there's an event, and I don't have to tell most of y'all this, you're usually aware of it. There's an event that usually happens, and most of the times these conversations typically start via book Twitter, because something happens where something is done or something is said, and it is often related back to one of these topics. A lot of times when we hit the topic of consumerism, it's usually because somebody has posted like 1,000 book haul, and someone's like, you know what, are you really like spending all this money on books? Are you not actively aware of global issues that are going on? Didn't you just say you had no money? So yeah, it's one of those things where it is very cyclical in nature, and we often do end up talking about it over and over and over again. Actually, it reminds me of that song by Nelly, and is it Tim McGraw? I think the song, or maybe it wasn't Tim McGraw, I don't know, but it's, I think about it over and over again. I can't keep seeing you with him, and I can't take it, and I can't shake it. Listen, you're seeing me in rare form today because I am well rested and I'm a little on the hyper side. So these little ad-libs that are coming in, you know, you're not gonna always see these things. This is me in rare form. I think with like the piracy thing, a lot of times that comes up when an author starts talking about how it is important to support authors and purchase their books and not to, you know, pirate their books and, you know, read free online copies of books. And of course, then we go back to piracy. And I think that for the most part, each year we don't really take different angles on the conversations. They pretty much stay the same, and people usually just kind of say the same thing over and over again. And here's the thing. So there's pros and cons to having cyclical conversations. I think about it in terms of the fact that cyclical conversations, as in a relationship, I think that we are in some form of a relationship with each other. The community is in a relationship with itself. I wouldn't go as far as to say, like in my other video, that we're the fruit to each other's loops and, you know, we are the ice to each other's cream. Like, yeah, we're not going to take it that, but we are in some type of community relationship with each other. And like in any other relationship, I think when topics keep coming up and things become cyclical, it is an indication that something is still wrong. Something is still not right. Something still hasn't been fixed. And it doesn't mean that it's always healthy, because like in any other relationship, sometimes when you continue to bring up the same thing over and over again, your relationship is no longer productive. You keep living in what has been said and what has been done. But I think that it's a twofold type of thing. We can look at it as the fact that as a community, we still haven't resolved these issues. We still haven't dealt with these issues. And quite often when we talk about these issues, there is no resolution per se. And I'm not sure 100% if when we have these discussions about things like piracy and consumerism and whatever else we decide to bring up, I don't know if such grand I don't want to say grand experiences, I don't know if such big topics like that really do genuinely have a resolution. I think those are a little bit harder to kind of put into a black and white lens, as opposed to, okay, you know, every readathon that you have, please stop putting, you know, read a diverse book. Like, that should already be just kind of a known factor. It doesn't need to be a box on your bingo board. So stuff like that I think is a little bit easier to fix, depending upon whether people are willing to jump on board, than say talking about, is it appropriate for someone to haul 100 books or not? I mean, can you tell someone how to spend their money? Can you? I mean, genuinely, can you? I mean, it's not to say that it's not impactful. It's not to say that it doesn't have certain consequences. It's not to say that it can make community members feel some type of way, but can you genuinely tell someone how to spend their funds? You know, so it's one of those things where you kind of tug back and forth, and there is no direct answer. But it is a clear indication that we have these larger issues within our community, and we're looking for ways to resolve it. And part of me does like that, because in some ways, depending upon who you're talking to and who has the reins on the conversation, I think that some people are trying to help the community grow. They want the community to see things from a different lens and to really take the opportunity to appreciate the different things that different people bring to the table. And sometimes I feel like when these cyclical conversations come up, they are also a means to bring new community members into the fold, and for them to have the opportunity to express their thoughts and opinions. But I can also see, like I say, I can see both sides of the fence, where someone may say, like, you know what, actually, you know, I'm just tired of talking about the same thing over and over again, because nothing gets resolved. We don't come to any type of resolution, and next year we're going to be talking about the same thing. And I don't know if I myself even have a direct answer to what we can do in order to change that, whether we can, you know, actually come up with solutions to some of these things, because a lot of the cyclical conversations are major topics, and I like that. Not maybe the cyclical nature of it, but I like that these issues get brought to the forefront because they're serious and they impact the entire community, and it gives people the opportunity and the time to voice their concerns about things. I think that one of the things that really came up this year that really made me consider a lot about my own experience was the fact that there were a lot of international booktubers saying how we're so Western focused, and that we are so basically hyper focused on everything that's happening in the Western world, especially those who live in the US. US people, not everyone, but a lot of us do have a tendency to be very into our own problems and issues. We're very US centric. We are not looking at things from a global perspective, and that is the nature of this country. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing by far, but it is the nature of this country. And to hear a lot of international booktubers talk about the fact that, you know, everything down to our reading, to issues that we talk about, how we carry ourselves is very Western centric, and we can't be so bothered to really look at the experiences of our international counterparts. And that's something that kind of hit home for me, not knowing that I was so far up my own issues with my own country that I wasn't really considering other booktubers that were going through major crises of their own in their own countries, and they weren't necessarily being covered by US news. But then we have, you know, social media, so it's not really an excuse if my news networks don't cover it. We have social media where people network, and it's you know, it's pretty easy to kind of find some stuff out, not everything, but some stuff out. It is easy. So the reason why I said, like, sometimes I do like the cyclical nature of it is because sometimes you don't catch every major discussion that happens. Sometimes you have new people who join into the community, and it gives them the opportunity to share their thoughts and opinions about what is going on. Just the biggest hiccup of having a cyclical conversation is that you get tired of talking about the same thing over and over again, and you don't know if you ever truly are going to come to a solution. But the whole point of the matter is that we talk as a community, and that is something that is really, really, really important. Do we always talk to each other in the best ways? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would be foolish to sit here and say that we have the best de-escalation tool, or we are really, really great as a community with conflict management, because honestly, I think all of us could go through a training on conflict management together as a community. But I think that when there are so many emotions involved, and you have a lot of people in this community that are super passionate about the work that they do, then you end up seeing a lot of heightened emotions into a situation where people want to be heard and they feel like they're not being heard, and people are overlooking their voices, and it gets really, really frustrating. I have been on the receiving end of not being heard about certain things, and I can really attest to the fact that it is something that is extremely frustrating. So while we may not always handle the conflict in the best way, we don't always talk to each other in the best ways, I think that the fact that these conversations are happening is really, really interesting, and it shows that we think about the bookish community in a larger way than I think what people anticipate us doing. And you know, it's always going to be years when people are like, all right, y'all, like, I'm tired of talking about this crap. We don't talked about this last year, we talked about it the year before. What we gonna do, talk about it next year too? And the answer to that question is yes, you probably will talk about it next year too. And the perfect thing about that is that it gives you the opportunity to opt in and opt out of the conversations, and it gives you the opportunity to really let your voice be heard and to engage in these complex conversations, which I think that, you know, people write off some of it as drama, and I think certain aspects of it can be drama depending upon how the situation is approached and how people are really handling, you know, talking to each other. I think it can be drama, but I also think that it shows that Booktube is full well and capable of discussing complex issues, and the fact that Booktube is more than just a community that reads. They do consider things that are more important than just, you know, the stories behind a book. I think one of the conversations that I really enjoyed this year was when the piracy conversation started. It was one that actually led to a discussion about the role of libraries and librarians. And honestly, in the years that I have been a part of this community, I'd never seen it actually take that lens or take kind of that angle, because, you know, the conversation has happened before. Like, book piracy is always a conversation that we have in this community. It happens every year because some author comes out and says something, and then the conversation ensues. But this year it was a little different because someone had tried to throw libraries in and say that we were responsible for essentially helping stop book piracy, without realizing that they were placing a great responsibility on libraries where they were incapable of, you know, handling that responsibility. And that was a great way for me to give my voice to that conversation, because that is my career and that's what I do every day, and it's my lived experience, and I was able to bring some insight. So sometimes, although these conversations do end up taking place year after year after year all the time, there are moments when we do bring different angles and the conversation does change slightly. So I don't really have a direct answer to how do we stop these cyclical conversations? How do we stop them from happening? Like, how do we move on to different topics? I don't think we ever will, to be honest with you. I think that it is just part of the nature of the community that we're in, that these conversations are due to come up all the time. And I don't know if we should stop them, because it's always going to be a year or two somewhere in all this time that we continue to talk about the same things, that a different angle or a different perspective may be brought, because you have different community members joining every single year. I think it's a way to kind of keep ourselves in check and to be actively aware of how we impact each other, how this community impacts the bigger reading community. It's a lot to be said about whether it's truly productive or not. And I think in some ways it is productive, and in some ways it's not so productive. It's not so productive at all. And I hear, you know, valid voices on both sides of this. You know, I feel for the people who have been in this community for a long time and are like, here we go, we've hit our consumerism discussion for the year, we've hit our quota, here goes this conversation again, because it's one of those things where like nothing gets solved anyway, so what is the point of having this conversation? So yeah, while these conversations are cyclical, and I'm so sorry for the bird, there's this one bird, that bird right there, who literally is up with me every morning and he does not shut up. He's loud and he's obnoxious and he gets on my nerves. So welcome to like the nature feel in the background of the very last tidbit of this video. So yeah, I think that there is no answer to this. Booktube likes to talk about the same things over and over again, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good, but I think that it's important that these discussions are happening anyway. So let me know how you feel about the cyclical nature of Booktube conversations in the description box below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button to see more content. I was like, I don't know what I was about to say. Hit the bell for notifications. Looking for ways to support this channel, follow me on social media. All the links will be down in the description box below, and I'll be back with another Vlogmas video tomorrow.